Hey GBA fans, I'm Choice CJ, back again with my co-host Jamesanity.
Hello.
Hello, and it's that time again. We're going to be discussing our picks for Game of the Week, and we'll follow that up with our weekly discussion of the Pokemon that are most likely to earn the season end awards. We are now 75% of the way through the season, which is pretty wild. So let's hop right on into the action. Jamesanity, why don't you kick us off by talking about your choice for Game of the Week?
Alright, so I chose Crimson Seabad and his Detroit Steelwings versus Necrostevo and his Utah Jasmine. This match was actually picked previously when it was the first time these two teams squared off, when Cooper was the coach of the Utah Jasmine. So we're picking it again. And that's not just to pick it again, this match was actually really amazing. The initial Serena pressure from Crimson was amazing. For the first 10 or 15 turns, the Serena just kind of stayed in there and applied a lot of pressure onto Necro's team. Early in the match, both Hippowdon and Slowbro got toxicked, affecting the defensive play for the rest of the match, especially for Necrostevo, as his Hippowdon was his last Pokemon left and had acquired a lot of toxic damage throughout the match, and as you may know, Hippowdon has no way to heal itself, so that kind of stacked up. Looking more on the offensive side of things, Crimson was definitely in control of that. Almost every time the Kyurem or the Sylveon switched in, it got some kind of kill or momentum, and near the end of the game, Sylveon just kind of cleaned up. Necro's offensive threats died early to mid-game, leaving his Hippowdon and his Swellow as his two last mons, which Swellow didn't really do too much and couldn't really do too much to Crimson's team. This match was basically just Sylveon-centric. Necrostevo couldn't really get through the Sylveon, even with Mon like Klefki. It died to the Sylveon. Yeah, this was basically a match of Necrostevo versus Sylveon, and as much as that kind of seems one-sided, it really wasn't. Until the Sylveon came in, pretty late game, it was very close, and it seemed like any team could have won at any point, so that's why I picked the Detroit Steelwings versus the Utah Jasmine. CJ, do you have anything to add?
So my favorite moment from this match was when the Volcarona went up to +1 with the Quiver Dance, and the Manaphy that was holding the Rindo Berry came in and took the Giga Drain and then stole all of Volcarona's stats with the Heart Swap. I think if Necrostevo had been Heart Swap 3 attacks, that he probably could have taken that game. But because he was Heart Swap with Tail Glow, he only could afford Scald plus Ice Beam coverage. And that unfortunately meant that the Kyurem could easily take out the Manaphy. So I was excited for a little bit and then disappointed. As you mentioned, Sylveon just put in so much work in this game. I think that Necrostevo really had the right game plan going into this match with the hazards, because if he had been able to set up the hazards, set up the toxic spikes, he would have been able to wear down Chase's team so much more easily. But because those toxic spikes stayed off the field, he just had no way to wear down Chase's team, and he didn't have the offense to do it this week, because the Swellow was Scarf, not Flame Orb or Choice Specs. Manaphy got knocked out real early, and then he just didn't have a lot of offense otherwise. So for me, I guess the reason I wouldn't have picked this game is just because I thought that Stevo had the right game plan versus the team that Chase brought, but just couldn't execute. And so, like, for that reason, it's just less, I'm less inclined to pick it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With that, I'm going to go ahead and switch gears and talk about my match of the week, which was the New Orleans Pelipers versus the Alola Athletic, Mr. Pokemon versus the Mr. Hoodlum Scrafty. This game was definitely the closest of the week. It was a 1-0. There weren't any really flashy plays in this game. It was just kind of straightforward, and both players just played really well. I don't think there were really any mistakes that were made in this game. There's a little bit of over-predicting that took place in the early part of the game. Callum tried to go into his Rotom a few times trying to catch the Skarmory, but it didn't work out for him. Instead, his Excadrill got kind of weakened. But I liked the play that ended up taking place a few turns later. The Rotom came in on the Uxie, again trying to expect the Skarmory, but Uxie just clicks U-turn, and that allows the Goodra to just come straight in. Goodra can click Dragon Tail once on the Rotom after it Volt Switches into Drill. The Rotom comes back in, which is unfortunate for Callum. He thinks that he can outspeed the Goodra because he didn't notice the speed the first turn. obviously he can't notice the speed because Dragon Tail's minus priority. So he had taken 2 turns of rocks, basically, or maybe even 3 turns of rocks, I don't remember exactly. But then he gets surprised by the fast Goodra, which drops a Draco right onto that Rotom's head. And Rotom could have been a real nuisance for John's team because he didn't have a electric immunity on his team this week. Pivoting around with that and perhaps with Crobat could have been a pain, but took out a threat early. The other really exciting moment in this game, and I guess maybe exciting moment isn't the right way to put it, but just I really liked John's ability to see 4 or 5 turns ahead in this game. The moment came in where he was up like 5-3 or 4-3. Jolteon came in on the Crobat, and he knew that Callum was going to be bringing in Shaman, so he Volt Switches into Sneasel. And he knows that the Sneasel is going to threaten out that Shaman and lure in the Emboar. And it goes for knockoff and knocks off the Emboar's Choice Scarf. At that point, like, the Jolteon probably could have outsped the Emboar. I don't remember exactly what the spreads were, but Scarf Emboar was looking like it could have potentially won that game for Callum. But without the Choice Scarf, he really didn't have any chance. And John just did such a good job of forecasting what was going to be happening and, you know, what was going to be his best path to victory, and made a series of plays that set him up perfectly to execute. And so that was just really impressive to me, and like more than anything else, those series of plays is why I picked this game as Game of the Week.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense why I would pick this game for Game of the Week. It was very close, and as you said, John was able to see very far ahead, and both players played really well. But the reasons I didn't pick the match is I didn't feel it was that memorable. I didn't feel it was that exciting. I just felt it was kind of, I hate to use the word average because it wasn't too average, but it was average in a sense where there weren't too many exciting plays or too much of anything really that was going on during the match. I just didn't feel it was as memorable as the Steel Wings versus the Jasmine.
Yeah, I feel ya. I can definitely respect that. If you guys would, just please go ahead and leave a comment down below telling us which game you liked the most for Game of the Week. We love to hear your thoughts. We'll go ahead and move on now to our season award watch, and things are coming down to the wire here. We only have 3 games left in the season, and we are seeing a little bit of movement in some of these categories. We dropped Volcanion last week, which had been in the offensive category all season, and you'll see in a moment we have a little bit of a shake-up on the defensive side coming up this week as well. But I'll quickly recap the offensive category. We still have Cobalion at the top of the pack, which is the leading kill getter in the league, and it has the best differential. It did not come to the Week 9 match versus the Utah Jasmine, though, so it's hard to evaluate anything going on there. Similarly, Crocodile did not come to the match this week. It's really funny that Chase had been relying on these 2 Pokemon so heavily all season, and then he brings neither of them to the game this week and is still able to come up with a pretty nice victory, so that's really nice. Finally, the last Pokemon that we're going to include in this category for this week is Virizion. Virizion is looking real nice with 11 kills. It was able to add 1 more kill to its record this week, taking out the Xurkitree from the Milwaukee Sawsbucks. Xurkitree had been healed up with a Wish from the Licky Licky, but it was not able to survive a close combat even after the HP that it gained. And then Virizion also was instrumental in breaking the disguise on Mimikyu. Mimikyu could have been a real issue for Envy, potentially. That sums up our offensive category.
Moving into defensive, we still have Melodic at the top of the pack. It didn't come Week 9, so there's nothing super new to report on in concerns of Melodic, but simply that it keeps its spot at the top of the defensive ladder. Pyukumuku is still here, and is still a huge momentum-giving Pokemon for Gator. I would like to mention that sometimes it's not how well a Pokemon can take hits, though Pyukumuku has taken a lot of hits during these 9 weeks. It's more of how it benefits the rest of the team, and Pyukumuku has done that incredibly well for Gator. Returning from last week is the Alolan Muk from the Gym Chargers. It did okay this week, but it's still not at the top of the list due to being a bit more offensive in nature and being used more offensively. And Fortress is our returning addition this week. It came quite in clutch this week, but it's kind of barely hanging on to the list at this point. It hasn't really done much like past Week 9. We'll see about Fortress. We'll see about Fortress.
Yeah, I really liked how Fortress was able to 1v1 the Metagross this week. That was a real game changer. We'll go ahead and talk about our last award, which is, of course, the Coach of the Season award. And James, you and I actually did not discuss this before we started the video, but I think it's because it's pretty self-explanatory that MV is the head honcho in this category. MV was able to come up with another victory versus the Milwaukee Sawsbuck this week, so they were able to take the season series 2-0. It was a close game. Steve brought the Trick Room once again, but MV was able to play around it, even without the Curse Muck. He didn't bring the Trick House this week, so he wasn't able to counter the Trick Room quite as well. But he's just been executing so well. Do you have anything to say on MV?
Yeah, he has that 8-game win streak. He still has the highest record in the league, and he's still proving he's definitely one of the better battlers, if not the best battler, into Week 9 with a defeat over Steve in the Milwaukee Sawsbucks. As you said, even though he didn't bring the Curse Muck, he still was able to counter the Trick Room, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth mentioning, too, that MV has clinched his playoff spot at this point. He's the first coach to do so. So that's pretty impressive. And for me, James, you can tell me your opinion on this. So obviously MV has the best record, and he's proved probably to be the best performer. But there are a few coaches who I would give a big shout out to in this category, namely Gio and the San Francisco Giants. Just with the incredible comeback that they've staged so far this season, they're on a 4-game winning streak, and if they keep up this type of play, they might sneak their way into playoffs. Do you think anything about that?
Yeah, actually, the Melee division is really close, seeing as 3 teams are 5-4 right now, so one win or one loss can really decide the entire playoff picture for that division. Gio went from 1-4 to 5-4 to really put himself into that playoff picture. So, yeah, props to Gio, definitely.
Yeah, so if he finds a way to get into playoffs, I don't know, this might be a toss-up. But that'll all, of course, depend on the result of the next few weeks. We'll ask you guys to stay tuned for how this all shakes out. We'll ask you to stay tuned for more discussion on the offensive and defensive mons of the season. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, make sure that you leave a like down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for other analyst content like the Power Rankings and the Pick'em Crew and the playoff picture videos that have now started on the channel. And make sure you check out all of our fabulous coaches, so that way you can stay up to date on all of the weekly content. Jamesanity, do you have any closing words?
Yeah, check out the Discord if you haven't already. It's a great place to talk to us analysts. It's a great place to talk to the coaches. It's a great place to talk to even the moderators. They're really cool people too. So just hop on the Discord if you haven't already. You certainly won't regret it.
Wise words, wise words. Yeah, please check out the Discord. Thank you guys very much for watching, and until the next time, we will see you guys later.